And now, the Android Basics segment. This is a segment where we discuss the things that power your device from behind the scenes. And now, here's this week's episode, Android Basics.
So now we're turning to the Android Basics segment where we'll be talking about flagship devices. Do we need them or not? Take it away, Warren.
Well, I was going to cede that to Karin first, but I will take it. So we're talking about these flagship and mid-range devices, and sometimes you have a budget or whatever, below budget devices and all of that. Now, frankly, to be honest, this is a debate that has been going on for a while, or whatever it used to be, that mid-range devices, for example, were just not very good, or one did not have good experience with those things. But I would like to argue that nowadays, though, they've kind of closed that gap to where it's hard to really draw a line between the two. Yeah, there are certain differences or inferences that one could draw from these flagship and non-flagship devices, especially those mid-rangers. But then, those differences are very small in comparison when one compares it to what it used to be in the past. And so I'm just sitting here thinking about the subject matter, and I'm looking at these great mid-ranges. Most especially these days, it's surprising that we're talking about $400, $500 phones as mid-rangers. This is mind-boggling because that's a lot of money, considering the fact that earlier on, most of the flagship devices were like maybe $500 something, $600 plus at the most. And now we're paying over $1,000, $1,500. And if you're John, you're getting the new Samsung or whatever, $3,000. Hey, I'm not gonna do that. So
hey, don't call me out for that. I'm not spending $3,000 on that phone.
You're not gonna do that? What happened?
No. I was kidding about that. I just bought, or I should say, my wife just bought 4 appliances for $2,000. I'm not gonna spend an extra $1,000 on a phone. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. I'm sitting here thinking, who would want to pay $3,000 for a phone? But really, so the whole idea here is, now that is like a car, a used car, a damn good used car. Excuse my Espanol, if you will. That's a good used car. You may get a nice, good used car for $3,000. And to take that and dump it on the phone, and then next year you're doing the same thing again, I think time has come to where we need to rethink this wholesome idea of buying a flagship phone. Now, I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm preaching to myself here, getting a new Pixel flagship every year, the one with the most storage and all of that. And I got to thinking about that yesterday as we were talking about this today. And I got thinking about it yesterday. And I was saying to myself, my gosh, every year one is dumping over $1,000 on a phone. Well, now and then, one may trade in. I never used to trade in, but I've started for last couple years, I've traded in devices. And so this year I'm thinking of trading in again. But now back to the subject matter at hand. Do we really, or does one really need to spend all that money on that big flagship device? And the reason why we do this is because, we want that good responsiveness, or we want our screen reader to be responsive and do what we want to do. Now, the truth is that these mid-rangers, these $400, $500 devices, perform just as well, whether they're running the Snapdragon 600 series or 700 series, or the MediaTek 7000 series, or whatever. One has that same good experience. And most especially, I think another part of the reason why we want these things, or the flagship device, and I'm looking at those of us who are blind, is because when it comes to the camera and all of that. We want a good camera scanning and all of that. And to be honest, I haven't seen any disappointment on a mid-range device. For example, maybe I'm trying to scan something, whether I'm using an OCR package or using something like Gemini, doing Gemini Live, or using something like Lookout and all of that. My observation is that those mid-rangers do the same good job in as much as the flagship devices do. So the question here is, do we really need them? And if one does not have the money, then my thinking is that if you're able to afford something like $500, because most of them like $499, $449, whatever. I wish we get rid of this wholesome 0.99, whatever nonsense. Who are we fooling here? It's $500. Let's be honest with ourselves, or $450. But all this 0.99, I just don't buy any of that nonsense. So, Taryn, what do you think? And then we'll talk about the responsiveness of the the screen readers and apps in general.
So I'm not revealing a secret when I say that I'm the one in the podcast crew and accessible Android teams who uses the mid-ranger, because actually this is what I was able to afford, or this is what I'm still able to afford, and this is making me the one who is able to talk about the experience from, like, it's a real life experience. It's really someone who's using this device. So to be honest, I think that things have improved so much compared to how things were before. Now mid-ranger can give you a good experience. Yeah, there'll still be slight difference, and this difference it's not only with a screen reader. The difference is in the whole experience, and this is not only for me as a blind person, it's for a sighted person as well. So in fact, if the phones will be the same in all aspects, then nobody would get the high-end devices. So there should be difference here and there. So this difference, I may feel it more sometimes as a screen reader user, because there could be a slight impact on the responsiveness, or there could be a slight lag sometimes, but I think it's acceptable. I got my phone for about $400, or actually I got it for $420. It was, I think it was released a month before I got it, and it was just $420. So, and those mid-rangers usually are discounted quickly. So if you just wait for maybe 2 or 3 months, you get the $420 phone for about $380 or $370. And this is very good for what a mid-ranger can give you in these days, because you're getting actually IP rating, you're getting stereo speakers, you're getting an acceptable processor, you're getting good battery. So all of this wasn't possible before. So when you got a mid-ranger before, you wouldn't get any of these things that were reserved for the high-end devices. And the mid-rangers are having better processors right now compared to how they were before. So I think all of this is for the advantage of people, of consumers, because to be very honest, and we all know that not everyone is able to spend $800 and $900 and $1,000 on a phone. So some people just have more important things to spend money on. So, and it's not a small difference when you say that $400 or $1,000. We were talking about $600 difference. So I think that you would get a good experience. You would get something that is that can just let you do the things that you have to do, and I don't think that we are really losing much when we are getting mid-rangers. But I think that people should pay attention to some things. first of all, the company that you are getting the phone from, some companies are so much aggressive when it comes to RAM management, when it comes to battery to battery optimizations. So when you have such type of device, sometimes this ruins actually the experience, because you're a screen reader user and you're a TTS engine user. If any of the two is shut down by the system, you are having trouble. So, and there are Chinese manufacturers who aren't really paying attention to this fact, and screen readers are just stopped. So Jisho, for example, is trying so much to not be killed by the system. So this is a real problem. You should pay attention to this. Also, the amount of RAM that you get, don't go for very like for 2 gigs of RAM or 4 gigs of RAM right now. It's not something that, because the system also, when it needs to have RAM for other stuff, it could just kill the screen reader or the TTS engine that you're using. And to summarize things, or to add one thing actually before summarizing the thing, just try to not go for very low end devices. I know that there are people are on tight budget and they can't really pay much, but try to get maybe a used phone, which is a mid-ranger or a high-end device from several years ago. I think it's better than getting one of the very low-end devices. Yeah, the phone will work, okay. Like if you get a 05 or a 04 or whatever, it will work. But the thing is that it won't be the best experience, because even for sighted people, those phones struggle. So for example, I know someone who has an Honor X5B, which is it retails for $80 or $85. So the person is sighted, but if the person has problems, even when the person answers the phone, it takes about 3 seconds really for the phone to yeah, okay, the person just tapped the answer button, I should just react. So this is a real problem. And just imagine if you are a blind person, so you have a screen reader which is also working, so the experience would be really terrible, so much terrible, because if it's terrible for a sighted person, it would be more problematic for a blind user. In summary, the thing is just try to get something which is good mid-ranger. Just stay away from the very low-end devices. And if you can afford a flagship and you think that you might need it, just go for it. It's just you're treating yourself, and it's good. You have sometimes to feel that you're owning something pro. So it's something also not a bad idea.
You raised up some very important issues here, or rather subject matter here, Karen, or characteristics. I first want to start though with the battery, because apparently for some reason, some of those mid-rangers have better battery, bigger batteries than even the flagship devices. Samsung, I'm looking at you. John, I'm looking at the guys from Samsung, for example. They will give maybe like a 5,000 milliamp battery for a mid-ranger, some of those A-series devices. And then in the same breath, will give like a flagship, like a 40-something 100 milliamp battery, for example. And so it is important that those things have that big battery, like you mentioned, Karen. And then another thing that you mentioned also has to do with the speaker. So my take is that if you're getting a mid-ranger or any other phone for that matter, it makes sense to have one that has dual speakers if possible. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like that single bottom firing speaker, and it's like in the olden days, and some still even do it, like on those low end devices that you mentioned, Carrie, and still have it like, but at the bottom and yet facing toward the back. And so you put it on a table, for example, that thing could get muffled, or if you hold it in your palm or whatever, that thing could get muffled, for example. So there are some things to look for, to be aware of when you're getting a mid-ranger. Make sure that it has that big battery, and then also make sure that it has dual speakers. Then you touched on the subject matter of RAM, Karen. That's very important. But I think that nowadays, though, most of those mid-ranges, they have either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM, no? Am I mistaken? I don't think they make them with 2 gigs of RAM anymore, unless, of course, you're getting those that are like the $200 range, or, like the $80 one that you are talking about, or going back to the day when I got the LG Sunrise for my kids. It was a $20 phone. And it has talkback on it, and I turned talkback on. I was surprised it actually worked. But I'm talking about a $20 phone here from several years ago. Maybe was it 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. But really, when we're talking about these mid-rangers, so we got 2 categories here. You got the high-end mid-ranger. I'm looking at all the A55s and A56 and whatever from Samsung, and the A series from Google. Those are the ones that I will consider high-end mid-rangers. And then you have those that fall within like $200. I'm looking at you like the Samsung A17 series, and some of those S16s, those fall within the $200, $300 range. So you see the gamut now covers over a multitude of areas where it gives us options as to what we can choose from, whether we want a higher end mid-ranger or a lower end, and then a budget below budget phones and all of that. So one needs to kind of pay attention to what they're getting. And in each and every one of those categories, there's always something good and always a little trade-off and carrying, like you mentioned. Sometimes an app may stutter because maybe the RAM is not enough and it's being shared. And so when it comes to that, and then you add accessibility on there, and it's constantly talking. And you mentioned some of the Chinese phones carrying earlier on, how they manage TTS engines or screen readers, for example. And I know there's been a little bit of a problem with Eloquence, where especially some of those Chinese phones are kind of making it hard for those using Eloquence to use the TTS engine, because they're killing it, like you indicated, or kind of like putting it to sleep or whatever. So those are pitfalls one should be looking out for when you're getting a mid-range device. Or like you said, Karen, I always refer to the Flagship from yesteryears as yesterday's wine. I think it's a good thing. If you don't have money and money is a concern, frankly, even if you get a Flagship device from, say, 2022 or even 2021, it will be better than some of the lower mid-range devices in the $200 range. For example, let's say you go back and get something like Galaxy S21 Ultra from 2021, and you compare it to something like maybe the A16 or A14 or A12, that S21 Ultra will just run circles around that A14 or A12. So it makes sense. I know we want to save money, but for me, I would rather get yesterday's wine versus getting a very low mid-range device. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Basically, stay away from the lower end stuff, especially if you're switching from iPhone, because you will notice it. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying this, but I don't think TalkBack at its best is even as fast as VoiceOver. So, yeah, it does struggle.
No question here, John. No one is going to give you grief about it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and the closer to the lower end you get, the more you'll notice it. But like Kareem pointed out, mid-range is really the sweet spot. Even if you have to get a used mid-range, it's better, because I'll just give an example. Like, so if you're going to buy a $400 phone instead of a $200 phone, you'd expect it to run twice as fast, and it actually does. It probably does run twice as fast. But then if you go up higher from like 400, say you go from $400 to $800 phone, like you into Flagship territory, That flagship is not going to run twice as fast as the $400 phone. I mean, you'll notice a difference, but it may be like a 10% difference or something. So I think the sweet spot is the mid-range. Like at that point, yeah, paying more money will get you a little bit better performance, but not much really.
And we have also the flagship killers, which are the phones that aren't really having the same price as the flagship, but they're not also the mid-rangers. So you don't get it, for example, for $400. You get it for $600, for example, or $550 or something. So those phones usually use like, for example, the high-end processor of last year, for example, the Honor 500 Pro, which I really hope to see in the global market because my eyes are on this device, really, but it's still in China. But I'll give it as an example. This phone uses the Elite chip, which is the high-end Qualcomm chip of last year. So this phones, for example, should be retailed for about maybe $600. So it gives you nearly the same experience as a flagship, but it's not a flagship, and you're not paying really the flagship price. Also, it has a good battery. It has the IP69 rating. So this is one example. Another example,
Yeah,
the problem
OnePlus does
is
it as well with the R
exactly.
series.
I was going to talk about the 15R. But
Yeah, and
the problem is with
the 13.
accessibility.
I almost said 14R, but the 13R was the same. It's just got a year-old processor, which year over year these processors don't improve that much. So it really is a good value just to get a new phone with a year-old processor in it.
Yeah, and it will give you a better experience than a mid-ranger. So because as we all said it, you won't be getting the same experience because actually you're getting a different processor, and companies don't want you to get the same experience. However, yeah, I know that there could be a slight difference, as you mentioned. It could be maybe 10%, 15%, whatever in the screen reader department. But I think if Google tries to let the TalkBack work better on devices, because the problem is that even on flagships you don't have the same experience that you get with iPhones, and I think that we should all agree on that. There was a discussion on the Telegram group before, but really there is still really a problem because I used iPhones before. Actually, they're not my phones at all, but I felt the difference. I felt how snappy VoiceOver is on an iPhone, but I don't think that anyone on Android is able to get the same experience, even if you get the best device available. So I think there's a real problem with the screen reader itself, with TalkBack itself. It lags sometimes. Yeah, it has gone like a serious like it was very bad before. It's now better. It's now like moving in the right direction, let's say, but it still needs work. It still needs some improvements, some refinements. Let's say, for example, when you scroll, you will feel it takes a little bit of time to stabilize the focus. So you scroll, then items appear on the screen. TalkBack takes a slight time to just focus on the item, and so you can just continue working. And also in web views, when you're working, for example, if there's a web view and you have ads, for example, you will feel the trouble. Sometimes on websites that have a lot of content, for example, if there are animations and things, so you will feel that problem. So I think the issue lies with the screen reader itself, not with the device that you are using. Because if Google wants to fix this, it can fix it. It can fix it also for mid-rangers, and I think this would make the experience just better on a mid-ranger for a screen reader user. And I think that would make the difference in responsiveness just less noticeable.
You mentioned those flagship killers, and Karine, the one that just came to my mind is the Poco 9 series that is now coming through. And as you indicated, these use actually the same chip, and sometimes maybe like from last year and all of that. Now, seriously, so if one wants to have a flagship device and doesn't want to really spend 1,000 or over 1,000, as most of them are these days, then the best thing to do is to get one of those flagship killers. And I'm looking at those R series that you mentioned, guys, from OnePlus, and then especially the Poco phones, which have very good chip from Snapdragon, and usually it's either like last year or sometimes even this year's chip, but may not be like the elite one or whatever. So if you're getting that in between that $1,000 plus and the $400 or 500, and it's kind of sandwiched between those two, I think you have the best of both worlds. And John, you mentioned something earlier, which is very important. Let's say you got a $500 top of the high-end mid-ranger, and you get a flagship costing $1,200, $1,400. And if the improvement or the differences between these two is just like maybe 10%, a little bit better on that $1,400 compared to that $500 phone, frankly, I don't think it's worth all that money, unless, of course, you are one of us who is crazy about wanting that stuff because you've kind of been conditioned and, locked into that motel where you can't find a door out.
Yeah, do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I probably a month from now I'll probably have a version of the S26. I don't know which version, but you know me, so.
I know
Do
you're
as I
eyeing
do.
that ultra. Yeah. Do
But
us,
I
Gary.
guarantee I'm not spending $300 or $3,000 on that trifold. I can promise you that.
No. Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking about it, and frankly, and here it wouldn't be too long before we start hearing the buzz, 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 the buzzing rumors about the Pixel 11 and all of that, and then that high fever pitch thing going on, and then oh gosh, I can't wait to get it, and it's like a disease that you can't cure yourself of, and sometimes I'm saying to myself, my gosh, why can't I stop this? I want to stop. It's like the damn watch. Excuse my Espanol. I said, I'm not going to get the watch. And then guess what? I got it. Now I'm saying to myself this year, I'm not going to get the watch 5. But we'll see what happens. But so finally, going back to this, really, it's just that that 10%, does it really warrant the extra $800, extra $900? I mean, because I'm looking at my Pixel with the 1 TB. When it was all said and done, it was like 1,600 and something with taxes and all of that. Now, is that worth all of that? Just getting a 10% more, performance compared to a high-end, mid-ranger. So it's totally up to the person, but we're saying these things so that people have an idea of what to look for, so that you don't get yourself trapped in that motel, most especially if you're trying to find something better to do with your moolah other than throwing it on the phone year in, year out, because it's a vicious circle, and it's not very good.